Hey guys, Ogalbina here, bringing you guys our WBE Week 4 Power Rankings. I'm of course not alone. I'm joined by my co-host Shuckleking. Do you want to say hi?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, so we're gonna be doing pretty much what we've been doing in the weeks prior. Week 2 went up on our channel, I believe. Week 3 went up on Shuckles. Week 1 went up on Shuckles. So obviously next week, same pattern will follow. So definitely go check out, Shuckleking. Drop a sub over there. He's doing a lot of WBE content as well. On top of this, potential coach reviews and stuff like that. But yeah, with that being said, we're just gonna be, going through this week's games and kind of talking about them as we go and ranking the coaches where we think they deserve to be and stuff like that. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. Though first, I do want to mention one game has not been played at the time of this recording, and we gave it a few days to wait and see if it got played. But Fruitberries versus Patty, which I believe is, oh my gosh, Sin City Scissors versus Georgia Goomies.
Yeah.
That game has not been played, unfortunately, so we just put them at the bottom. They've been serially kind of towards the bottom anyways at this point, but just to be safe, because we don't know the outcome of the game or how they played, they're going to be chilling at the bottom, so we're basically going to be going from like 14 on up this week.
Yeah. And
kind of going at it from that way, but yeah. With that being said, if you want to jump into game 1, which is going to be Vatsa versus Chimp.
Yes. Man, this was quite the adventure. Chimp's had quite the season this year. I don't think his record's showing how well he's done, but Vatsa did win the game. He had a Jack Button, Polytoad, Life Orb, Dreadnought, Lefty's Kingdra, Damp Rock, Mr. Rhyme, Scarf Mimikyu, and then Sash Counter Zoroark as like the lead to disguise, I guess either as Dreadnought or as Mimikyu, I guess depending on what Chimp's team was, but he led it off disguising himself as Mimikyu, which it was fine. He got a knockoff early on, which was fine on this Zoroark, got that chip pretty well. It was good that he did not click counter turn 1, because it was pretty free for Chimp to Volt Switch there, but yeah, it was cool that he had a Eject Button Polytoad. He got that in on the Scizor, and it basically gave him like 4 free opportunities to utilize Rain. And this week actually did have him on to kind of utilize Rain. Past weeks he had games where he brought Polytoad Rain, but didn't really need it. I think that was like week 1 against James. But yeah, no, he benefited pretty well with having Life Orb Dreadnought. That didn't have a track, that had Earthquake, so bringing a little bit more viable moves for the most part, but he did make a pretty cool prediction and killed off Chimp's Klefki with Earthquake, predicting that switch. That was pretty cool. Klefki, I don't know how well it was going to do in the game anyway, especially because Mr. Rhyme pretty much took away any of the screens that Klefki was going to set up anyway. But it was cool that Vatsa got that play correctly and played all right into that circumstance there. He had the Mimikyu on a Jealous and Recover when he was behind a sub with the Kingdra. So he made some pretty decent plays there. It was weird that the Kingdra didn't have a way to beat the Jellicent on Chimp's team. It seemed like the Kindred was just a sitting duck there, like, because it wasn't Specs, it wasn't hitting that hard, and didn't have Toxic to break through it. It was a sub-stalling set that couldn't do anything. So some weird builds from Vatsa, but that's what you kind of expect, like the metronome on the Polytoad. Kind of a weird play, but it worked out in the end. It would have been bad if it didn't work out, but it worked out. So I guess there was a chance that he could have switched into a Jellicent on like a Skull for the Polytoad, but I don't think there was any realistic way that Chimp would have gone into Jellicent on Polytoad, because Polytoad could have had Toxic pretty easily, so I don't think that was worth the switch there. It was weird that Vatsa sacked Mr. Rhyme at one point in the match to Rapid Spin on the Quillfish, especially because, well, first Chimp got low rolls in general, and he also didn't get a Poison Jab Poison on the Mr. Rhyme, because otherwise if he did get the Poison or got like higher rolls, then the Mr. Rhyme would have just died. And wasn't that Stealth Rock weak at this point in the game, though Stealth Rock not being up in the field basically allowed him to take 2 Plasma Fists from the Zeraor, so that was definitely clutch at that point. But that was pretty much on like the slight back foot close in the entire game until he got a 2 out of 3 crits on the last 3 turns with Shadow Claw and won the game. I mean, Shadow Claw's a 1/8 chance to crit each time, so there's a chance that it could happen. It's just unfortunate for Chimp that it did, but he got the win. It was entertaining. Probably not the highest quality games. I don't know if that's what he's going for at this point, but I can't make him really that much higher on the rankings than what I had him at, which is 11. You have him still at the last of our teams that played this week, so I'm guessing you're not too happy about his performance.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite game to watch. It wasn't very much fun. I think, so touching on Chimpack a little bit, I don't think he played super awful. I don't think he played, like, exceptional.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he played a little bit better, he wouldn't have been put in a position where he could have lost to RNG in the end, which I know is a very general blanket term, and I know if I lost to Hacks, I would be yelling at me if I said, like, hey, just don't put yourself in a position to be Hacks. But I think he could have been, played a little bit tighter of a game, in all honesty. Like, the, giving up Klefki really, really early on was very, very tough for him. And that was a really good middle ground play by that, but I think Chimp just kind of had to realize that Klefki was pretty good in that matchup. I will say, though, prep-wise, I'm not a big fan of the Sunny Day on keys. Personally, I think, like, a T-Wave would have been a lot better, just in general, versus that's his team over a Sunny Day tech or something like that, because that can always be reset while, you can always neutralize the speed of him on like that with the T-Wave. I guess you're not weakening his water attacks, but like at that point, I think it's mostly about speed control, especially when you're playing against Rain and stuff like that. I did like the Scarf Zero bring. I thought that was actually pretty clean, and it definitely had a really good position to win in the end game with Plasma Fist just spamming it, being in a really good spot, and it, honestly, should have won in the end game if you didn't get those 2 out of 3 crits. I was looking at the calcs. I don't know, it looked like it was a roll for the first Shadow Claw to kill the Jellicent if you didn't get a crit. I don't know the exact roll. Was it not a roll?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't? Okay, yeah. I couldn't tell by like looking at it. I tried to run the calcs and I was just like, I cannot tell. I did run the calcs on Zera though, because I obviously went and looked and even with his minus defense nature, he did have a little bit of investment there. I think he was 36 with a minus nature in his Zera aura. And I don't know if that's showed if he was Jolly or Adamant Mimikyu, but for the benefit of the doubt,
it was Jolly. Actually, I don't remember. I think it was Jolly. Not entirely sure.
Well, even if it was Adamant, I ran the calc just in case, like, give him the benefit of the doubt, because maybe he's like, I'm going to hit really hard, and I didn't even really pay attention to speed tiers and stuff like that anyway, so maybe you could have gotten away with Adamant, but regardless, a Adamant max attack in the Mimikyu Shadow Claw, just because that mon is so weak without a boost, it had a 1.2 chance to 2-hit KO.
Yeah.
So that crit 100% mattered, unfortunately. It wasn't even like, he just, didn't get the roll. He might have gotten the roll otherwise. I mean, he might have. If he got like 2 legitimately max rolls, then maybe. But that was obviously really, really unfortunate. And that's kind of the main reason I didn't move that up. I think he played a lot better this week than he has in past weeks, I will say. Past week, like you said, it's really funny because you said it too. In my notes, my third thing I said was not a track Dreadnought. I was really excited to see that he didn't bring a track Dreadnought, and he brought like an actual rain abusing set, something that did really good versus Shim's team. Like it was just like rain offense that put a lot of pressure on his team. Like it stabs plus earthquake killed something every single time it came in, pretty much. Especially with the Spadef Jellicent in the back needed for the Kingdra. So that was obviously really clutch. I think he played a little bit better, but again, I just think I can't really move someone up for getting bailed by RNG, in my opinion. Like, again, I know it's a high crit move, so he obviously had a decent shot of getting it, but 2 out of 3, definitely very, very unfortunate for Chimp. I wouldn't be happy about it either, but again, I think he could have maybe tightened up his play a little bit to win that game in the end and things like that, but, it happens. It happens. And I do agree. I do think the Kingdra set maybe pulled my hair a little bit because it was a set designed to beat Jellicent that didn't beat Jellicent, if that makes any sense. And like kind of showed because he was in there. He was subbed down in front of the Jellicent. He was spamming Dragon Pulse, and then he kind of realized like, I'm not netting any gain from this, and he was forced to switch out behind a sub still, which I think maybe he could have spammed D-Pulse a few more times, forced him to a recover turn before he did. But yeah, it was definitely a very interesting game. It wasn't like after rewatch, at first when I watched it on live, I was like, oh, this is an awful game. Didn't like it. I rewatched a little bit of it, and I was like, it wasn't as bad as I thought. But yeah, it definitely could have been better on both sides. And stuff like that.
Yeah, Chimp fell from 6 to 9 for me. Like Scarcero are like basically 6-0'd this game. Like, it should have done. He
could have put himself in a better position offensively for sure. And I like the Quillfish too. I thought SD Quillfish under Rain.
And he had T-Spikes too. He didn't he didn't get a chance to set up T-Spikes, but that would have been like so good.
That would have helped crazy with Zera too, because Zera, obviously being Scarf, not having as much breaking power, just getting up. If you got up T-Spikes and rocks, I think the Mimikyu was dead there at the end.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, dope. Let's jump on to game 2 then. is going to be Feint Attacks versus Auto. Now we have Feint Attacks pretty low. We're going to be talking about Auto, who's a lot higher up on the list for both of us.
Yeah, both at 3.
Yeah, so Otto has been playing very, very well this season. He ended up winning this game 3-0. Obviously, I'm giving a spoiler warning in the middle of the video, but go check out the videos and stuff like that in the cards.
They better know.
Yeah, I hope they know here. But Otto ended up winning 3-0 versus Feint Attacks. I think he positioned himself pretty well. I think it was also kind of Feint not really, utilizing his pieces very well. Like that, in the sense that, I mean, he let a lot of his, Scarf Rotom techs get very, very weakened very, very fast. Because, like, on paper, he probably shouldn't have lost to Scarf Rotom in the end. I mean, when you have a Roselia and a Kyurem chilling,
yeah,
it takes some pretty poor positioning to put yourself in a position in the end game where you're like, man, I lose to Leaf Storm, So that was definitely a little bit unfortunate. And another example that didn't really end up mattering, but it kind of just shows that he's not really thinking long term. He's more so thinking in this turn. Was turn 1 with the Rotom in against Lycanroc. I understand he was Sash, and I understand he lives a hit and things like that. But giving up your Sash that early to a potential Scarf Rotom is very, very unfortunate, especially when you can also, just get Willowed and then be useless at that point as well. And there's definitely good removal options on his team, and you have great responses to the Rotom. I thought it was just a little bit iffy to, give up that Sash for free. Again, it didn't really end up mattering at all, especially with the whole Mudsdale on the back. Like, it wasn't the most useful Pokemon offensively. I think if anything, use like a Sash lead with Endeavor, very, very clean set in the matchup, especially to lure that Mudsdale, because it was another really annoying mon for him to deal with.
Yeah, but he has an Aegislash, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, that also doesn't help. Yeah, so again, it's just not a great Lycanroc matchup in general then. But regardless, speaking of the Aegislash, I think Feint brought like negatives. Again, he was a more bulky AV Aegislash, which is a cool bring. I like that a lot actually. But looking at the team that Feint brought, even though it was barely invested Aegislash, he brought no defensive counterplay to an offensive AG. Like, nothing. Nothing switched into it on his team. His check was Pangoro, which obviously isn't, very good. I thought Otto's team was very, very well constructed. I love the Life Orb Starmie in the matchup. It was crazy seeing it get static paired by the Raichu. That was, like, really big. I think the game would have been a lot faster if Starmie wasn't paired, because it was so good offensively in that matchup. Like, ridiculously good. Just with stabs, dazzling Grass Knot, he hit pretty much everything. He did get a lucky pair on the Quag, but I don't think it mattered as much. And if anything, it also helped out Feint in a little bit in, like, a potential scenario where he wants to Toxic the Quag. The only thing I'll say about Otto in this game that I didn't really agree is he played turn 1 or early in the game when he was in with his Arcanine against Roselia, not clicking Toxic was a bit sus. I understand you want to attack what's in front of you, especially in the early game where you don't know your opponent very well. But it was a very, very quick free Quagsire. He lost a lot of momentum not clicking that. And obviously, Quag's really, really annoying for his team to break in general. And then the play later in the game when he's in and he tried to Toxic, and while the the Quag was actually paired itself, also not a very good play. I think he mentioned that himself, though. He clicked it and he was like, oh, that was a bad play. We all make them, but that was, very, very interesting. Especially when you're in against a Raichu, which is going to take 83 million from a Flare Blitz anyways.
Yeah.
So just attacking in front was really big. But he played a lot better than Feint, though, in the end of the game. Feint, again, he started off decently. In the mid-game, he wasn't in the worst position. But he's someone who just, hasn't really been able to see their end game goal in sight and things like that. And stuff like that. So, unfortunately, he just positioned himself a little bit poorly, put himself in a position where he lost to Scarf Rotom, and, Otto was able to keep up his winning streak and win 3-0.
Yeah, so I have Feint actually moving up a couple slots this week. I think, same with that, I feel like it's more so that people moved underneath them versus them actually moving, like, getting justified to move up. But I think at least Feint had some type of plan and was trying to execute it. The plan was to, like, get a lot of hazards because of his Spikes, Roselia, and then the lead focus Sash, Lycanroc. So he's planning to get a lot of hazards up and then win with Pangoro plus Kyurem, and to get Paras with the Raichu, and then the Quagsire was kind of like a general pivot against the team. So I liked the thought process there, but there are really no defensive switch-ins to some mons, and that wasn't great. Like Aegislash, really not much of an answer outside the Pangoro, and I guess like a Quag, but like a Specs, Aegislash would do a lot of damage. Starmie, he really had no answer to whatsoever either. Like Life Orb just decimated him, especially if it had a Dazzling Gleam to hit to cure him. Like, there was really not much of anything for Starmie, and nothing on the team outsped, because he didn't bring us Gar first. That was pretty problematic there. And Feint was going into the mindset saying, oh, he didn't bring Mandibuzz, so it's only Rotom that has a removal on the team. And that's a weird thought process to have when he has a Starmie as well on the team that could easily Rapid Spit it. You don't have a Ghost type to block the hazard setup. So I like that he had a plan. It's just the plan didn't necessarily make a lot of... It was an okay plan, and he kind of stuck almost too well to the plan. And he was able to get spikes and rocks up, but he lost like most of his team at that point. And Otto was still fairly healthy, and Feint was able to like get something like 1-for-1 kills towards the end. But at that point, he was just too late for him to really do anything at that point. Feint also forgot that the Rotom was scarfed towards the end of the game. He thought it was Specs, but he should have known that the Rotom was scarfed earlier on when he hit the Lycanroc first. So he should have known that the Kyurem was slower than the Rotom. So a couple misplays there. He also didn't know Arcanine got Play Rough, which isn't the biggest deal in the world. I don't know if Play Rough was the best bring in this game anyway, because it really only hit Pangoro, but it worked out for Otto. So I don't think Feint played terribly compared to other coaches. It's just the thought process of his team was sus, and it just didn't go as quickly as he thought the plan would go.
I think you went what do you call it? Play rough on Arcanine because it was like neutral, like mid ground to hit Kyurem plus the Pangoro super effectively.
Yeah, I just thought
close combat, but
yeah.
Close combat might have been like just stronger overall against a lot of different things. So I do agree. Yeah. I saw that. I was like,
yeah, I thought close combat was safer, and it also doesn't miss. I don't want to run play rough if I have a chance to miss something. I need.
Oh, if he missed, then again that would have been too. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh god, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Yikes. But yeah, that's going to be game 2. Let's go ahead and jump on to game 3, where it's Seabad versus Nexus. Do you want to talk about Nexus's win?
Not really.
No.
This was. There was another really bad game early on this season, but this is probably second or third or something. I don't know if you thought this game was horrific, but I thought this game...
It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best now.
Yeah.
I'm getting numb to it at this point. There's been a couple.
That's okay. They're fun. Seabad and Nexus are fun to watch.
So. Oh, I will say before, just as a preface, every week Nexus is the first. No, he's the second. I watch Pokemon's videos first, and then Nexus is the second person I always watch because he's hilarious during this commentary. And usually I can't watch people. I mean, there's no rule when they're not like super analytical. I'm explaining the correct plays down to a T. Nexus doesn't really do that. But especially when I'm watching these games on 2x speed, just to get them done quicker, because I have to watch every single one of them.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's one of my favorite things to do. But go ahead and continue.
Oh, no, I definitely look forward to watching Nexus games. It's funny. And Seabad has a good layout and format for his videos, too. A lot of the coaches do a very nice job. But, yeah, boy, so... First, he even before the battle started, he misclicked his lead because he didn't click confirm on the team preview, so it brought the first mon in his party, which was Rillaboom, instead of leading with Heliolisk like he wanted to against the Rapidash, and that would have been a great lead matchup. He would have gotten momentum in that regard, but yeah, that Rillaboom was probably the worst lead he could have had, so that was really, really bad. And then he had the type Nolid on the field against a Tracyod. And Nexus says, I've written this down. So, alright, Nexus, don't be stupid. And then he stays in with the type null and the Tracyod and just dies to close combat.
That was, no.
He found out it was banned. Like, there was no way that because type null's so bulky. Bulkier than Porygon, too. That it wouldn't have died unless we're banned. So we found out Tracyod was banned, but I don't know if that was worth the trade-off there. The thing was, he did get Gardevoir in for free, and for some reason killed the Tracyod. And you'll talk about that. I don't even know. And he also killed the Rapidash for good measure, whatever. So that was definitely a great start for Nexus.
Yeah, the guard punched a bigger hole than it should have. For sure.
Yeah, and at that, there's another play where he had Rillaboom in and a Morpeko. He was debating about all his moves. He said, don't go for high horsepower, and then he went for it anyway, and then he brought in the Scarm. Like, there are just some crazy plays that just didn't make any sense. But he was able to get the Gastrodon Toxic with the sub protect Toxic Salazzle, and that like won the game at that point. He could just sub protect, and in theory, like that should have just won the game right there. But somehow he got in positions where, if Ed, you'll probably talk about it, like Seabag could have just gotten 2 Aura Wheels off of Morpeko. Morpeko would have won at the end of the game. It was just some of the plays Nexus made just didn't make any sense. He let the Rillaboom get so weak that at the end, he just went for a random hit on the Skarmory and took Life Orb damage, and then he switched out. But maybe he didn't realize it, but if he came back in, he would have died to Rocks or Spike. He had 1 layer up, but he wouldn't have lived it, and there would have been no way to revenge kill more Pico with Grassy Glide. So just a lot of plays that didn't make sense, but he got the Toxic sub Salazzle and basically carried him for a victory. So I have him ranked 13. I actually have him going down a rank. I think there are games he played better in previous weeks than this week.
Point, yeah.
But he got the win. Congrats to Nexus for getting a first win. Seabad's games have all been crazy though, and that's why I have him so low. I had him 7th last week. I had hopes because it was the favorite team that I had, and he's 2-2, so it's not like he has in theory a bad record, but just some of his games, man, have been crazy.
Yeah.
So
I think overall this gen too, I do want to say, like, watching Seabad through all the different leagues he's played, like NCP and BBR, and, you know, obviously in WBE now, he's improved a lot this gen as the player he was in Gen 7. I think he's been playing better overall. But yeah, you're right. In this gen in particular, I mean in this league in particular, in WBE this season, he might be 2-2, but he hasn't really played to a 2-2 standard in my opinion. So I definitely have him a lot lower as well. And I love his draft too. His draft is looks like it's so much fun. It looks like a great team. But he's just constantly putting himself in mad positions due to like really, really questionable prep and building and stuff like that. Something I noticed, again, it didn't come into play because of the really bad double he made, which we'll talk about right after. But Adamant Giraffe was very, very interesting. And I've noticed he's done that a lot, where he kind of forces Adamant, because he's like, Adamant is stronger, and I like stronger because I'm Terrakion. Keldeo was really good versus this team. I would have 100% gone Max Jolly the rest of the time.
Oh, definitely.
100%. Or you know, caught Nexus not being Max Timid, you know, and, you know, outspeeding and demolishing him. I think, unless I'm tripping, I think that Adamant, I think Banded CC was still 2-8K on the whole team. Like, I don't think it was, you know, that much worse there. I don't think you need Adamant to, you know, really break that team, obviously, and stuff like that. So that was a little sus to me. Obviously, speaking on the track and the double and stuff like that, that double was a very, very bad play. Moonblast was, like, no drawback at all on the Skarm, just because +1 Moonblast and a +1 like a T-Bolt or something like that for Skarm blew it backwards. So there wasn't really a Moonblast resist on Nexus, on Seabad's team. I don't understand the track play. He didn't really explain it in his commentary either. He's like, I'm going to double track. And then Moonblast, he's like, ah, damn.
Yeah, I think he predicted like a Thunderbolt or a Mystical Fire, predicting the Skarm to come in. Yeah,
it's just like it's a Y thing, because again, you Moonblast into Mystical Fire or T-Bolt or something like that, because obviously even if you call it on the predict, if it's sturdy, it still lives the hit, and you have to attack it again anyways, and you're gonna outspeed it. It's a Skarm. So that was a very, very, very sus play, unfortunately. And I will say he did not prep for Subtoxic Salazzle at all.
No.
You could tell he didn't build for it, and that's a set. It's one of those things where if you get caught off guard with something like that, it's going to sit there. It's going to whittle your whole team down. And again, I think if he was just a little bit more well prepared for that, like you said, Nexus didn't play the endgame very well. He really didn't, and he was also very, very suboptimal with the turns in which he was subbing and protecting and things like that. He didn't really position himself super well in that sense, which was really unfortunate, because I think Seabag could have won in the endgame, and like you said, 2 Aura Wheels could have won in the mid as well. It's just, he's reminding me a lot like Feint, where he's not really seeing his endgame correctly, and really like seeing like, yes, I need this piece, yes, I need to, you know, preserve this, I need to, I don't know. It was definitely a really frustrating game to watch, because again, in his past weeks, he's been in a position where he probably shouldn't have won a couple of his games, like his game versus Steve the week prior. Steve should have won that game. He just didn't play the end game very well. This week, it was kind of Seabad not playing the end game very well, and it finally kind of came back to bite him. Other weeks, it's just been his opponents not playing a little bit worse than him, if that makes sense. I think with the team he has, he can definitely bounce back. but I think he needs to kind of tighten up his builds and stuff like that going for it. I will say, Nexus, please don't play for diff when you're struggling for wins. Please don't play for diff.
Yeah,
he said he was talking about differential for a lot of the game. I think that really did kind of contribute to him making really sus plays at the end, because he was like, I want to win 4-0. No, win 1-0 if you need to win 1-0, but it doesn't matter if you win 4-0 or like I would rather win 1-0 than lose 0-1, if that makes sense. Like, focus on getting the wins first. Worry more about differential when you're locked for a seed or something like that, because wins comes before diff, if that makes any sense. So
yep, definitely.
Please make sure you're doing that instead next week. That was every time he said it, I was like, no, don't do that. Come on, don't play for diff right now. It's not the move. But yeah, I did like the sub toxics last break a lot. It was definitely a really, really good break. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on to game 4, which was Pokegame versus Magnitude. And this was a very interesting game. I think Pokegame definitely played this early game really well. The Hurricane misses in the beginning were very unfortunate. Steve brought like Mono get 2 KO by Noivern. Like, Noivern went crazy. I mean, I guess the Mankind probably could have taken 2, to be completely honest, because I think it was like max spit F or something like that.
No, it wasn't. It
wasn't? Was it defensive?
Rain Dance, so it was like very little bulk.
Oh, wow. Okay, so, yeah, I think the Hurricane misses were definitely really, really huge, and I don't agree with Steve really giving up Komodo that early on in the game, but it ended up working out for him because he missed 2 Hurricanes, and I guess that's, the downside of running Hurricane, but obviously that thing completely dropped. I loved the Darm set by Pokemon. I thought that was a really creative use of Darm, where usually in Draft League especially, you see people like, oh, this is Darmanitan, my choice Scarfer. That's about it. I thought Bulk Up Life Orb was really good in this matchup and really preyed on, a lot of Steve's speed tiers and things like that. Obviously, he had the Double Water, but Mantine gets blown backwards by a Rock Slide. And then Bearscuta's not switching into Darmanitan. So, like, offensively, very, very good in the matchup. I thought it was really, really, really good. And I think Pokemon, he just played this game very well. It just, that early game kind of put him in a tough position. He was playing a very offensive game. I've noticed he brings like just raw HO with his pretty bulky team. He'll bring Teleport Bro and then like offensive Sylveon and 4 offensive Mons, which is a lot of fun to watch. But I think he knows how to keep his sack pieces correct in the back. He was very smart, not trying to set up Chandelure on the pivot, obviously knowing that it had the potential to trick him and stuff like that. And that gave him a +1 spec Sylveon, even if it's not clicking Hyper Voice. That's hurting. That's doing a lot of damage, which is obviously really smart.
Definitely.
It will claim a bunch of KOs and stuff like that. He made a smart play in the end game, not going hard bro and realizing I need to sack this, get into my bro for free on the Bearscuta, so he didn't go hard into it, risk a defense drop and things like that on the crunch, because potentially could have 2-hit KO'd him depending on the set. I don't think Scarf would have 2-hit KO'd him, to be completely honest. Again, I don't know the head calc at the top of my head.
I think it was E-Belt.
Was it E-Belt? No, I think it was Scarf.
No, it was Scarf. Adamant Scarf.
Yeah, because I remember writing down, like, I thought Scarf was pretty sus. I thought, like, a Life Orb set or something like that was really good in this matchup, or even E-Belt like that. That was also definitely really, really solid. I get why he wanted to be Scarf. I think he was probably scared of Drill Sand. Yeah.
Probably outsped
Drill
Sand. Yeah.
Yeah, but at that point, too, you go Life Orb, you go Jet, and it's going to pick off a weakened Drill as long as you can let it set for free. That kind of thing. But, yeah, I do think, I'm sure you'll talk about this, but this is the second week in a row where Steve played no Dark types with the Tree Necklace, just didn't position it correctly or ever getting in on the right turn. But, yeah, I think Pokemon brought a really offensive team. The score was 2-0, but I felt like he was in control the entire game. Like, the entire game was in very good control. Despite being kind of shafted in the, first couple turns of the game with his Noivern, missing 2 Hurricanes in a row.
Yeah, he was down 5-6 and still won pretty comfortably 2-0. So, definitely impressive game by Pokemon to win that. Yeah, no. I don't think Magnitude even played all that bad. Like, there was one play where it was Vanillix versus Mantine out, and I guess Steve predicting the Vanillix to go for Freeze Dry goes into Shandy, and Joey makes the play into Darm, and that basically got a kill every time Darmanitan came in. So, like, Joey made some good plays there. Magnitude, well, and that was also problematic because Darm went in because he lost his Como. He should have lost it to the Noivern, but then he lost it to the Vanillix. because
Yeah,
Joey just stayed in
what,
and killed
yeah,
the Como.
He just didn't switch it out. He just didn't want to switch it out. He was like, yeah, Como could stay in. That was the main reason, was the Darm. But go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, like he could have switched into like Mantine predicting the Blizzard and then been fine if you're expecting it to be like Specs or Scarf. So yeah, I don't know why he sacked the Como at that point. And Darm went in at that point. It was very weird. Vanillix was able to get up a Veil because the Barraskewda wasn't like Life Orb or Expert Belt or something like that to switch up moves. It was Scarf, which was kind of a strange bring in this game because, as you said before, Life Orb or Bandit Aquajet would have done plenty of damage to Excadrill anyway. And I think that was probably a reason why AIM didn't bring Excadrill because of Barraskewda. And it gave Vanillix to get a Aurora Veil up, and then Sylveon basically won the game or like weakened the team enough so that way Magnitude didn't really have a chance to win at all. And like at that point, I think Magnitude made some pretty, like, he made not incorrect plays, but didn't really have a chance to win either. Like, he didn't have Gyro Ball on the Sylveon either, so it was pretty tough for Magnitude to break through it. At the end, though, he did get the Renicklis finally, but he did get it in like the entire game, and I felt like it was a pretty decent mon to like bring in on a lot of things outside of like the Darmanitan if it was Life Orb, which I don't think Magnitude wouldn't have known it were Life Orb yet in that point of battle, just because the Mantine wasn't physically defensive, so it was gonna die to even like a Choice Scarf Rock Slide from the Darmanitan when he switched it in earlier on in the battle. So Steve went for Calm Mind as the Slowbro teleported in a Darmanitan. And now, like, this is looking for, like, Steve was down in the game. He has to find a chance to win the game. And he brings in the Darm. He didn't know the Darmanitan was Scarfed. So Steve's play 100% was assuming that Joey made a bad play and that it was Scarfed and stayed in and Flare Blitzed. And Steve should have gone for the Iron Defense there. If he went for the Iron Defense and it was Scarfed, he would have lived the second Flare Blitz, would have been able to recover up. And it was a pretty good position for Steve to win the game with Calm Mind, Iron Defense, Darmanitan. Now it happened to be Eddie Steady went for the Stored Power and killed Darmanitan, which in hindsight looked fine. And also in hindsight it was Life Orb Darmanitan, so Steve would have lost anyway. But it's like, rather than getting an extra differential point, you want to try to find an opportunity to outright win the game. And it wouldn't have worked out anyway, but it's just the thought process of trying to find yourself a win condition. So that's just stuff you have to look forward to in the future, Magnitude. And just have a better team. It was just a strange team this week.
Oh yeah, I thought Iron Defense was 100% the play because I think the Brodark is trying to be teleported. It's probably not Calm Mind itself. You don't really have to worry about it boosting up with you or out boosting you.
Yeah.
So you just Iron Defense up, and you should be in a pretty good spot depending on the Darm set. But obviously it would have killed because Life Orb Darm is ungodly strong.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Regardless.
And I have Steve at 12. You have him at 11. So he's 0-4, but he's also played like. Well, he played, what was it? Week 1, he played Seabad. Oh, was it last week?
No, I was talking about last week. No. Week 1, he played,
He played really tough opponents in general.
I know he's played Envy.
Envy, Joey, Auto.
Yeah, it was Auto week 1.
Yeah,
That's it.
Auto.
Yeah. So he's
had
played
like,
minus Seabad.
The top 3 coaches at who we thought was the best team going into it. So Magnitude's definitely had a tough schedule. So hopefully in his latter half of the season he can try to pick up some wins, because I don't think, like, I have a 12. He could easily be higher if he's won a game or two, though.
And he should have beaten Seabad too. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 5. We are flying through this week, which is going to be Callum versus Moe. Do you want to, start talking off about that one?
Honestly, not much either. It was a better. I mean. It
was better than Seabad. Seabad Nexus. I think it wasn't like that.
No, they both played pretty well this game, but Moet, I feel like Callum lost the game versus Moet winning this game. And Moet's team on Team Preview was so juiced. He had Seismitoad, Volibee, Marini, Voltpix. Like what? That's like your LCC team. Like what is this crap?
I said that in my notes. I said, bro, about mono LC in one. It was hilarious.
Unbelievable. Man. Like Ed, like the biggest, like Ed Mowat lost his biggest threat, which was Venusaur, like very early on to Cramorant. What is that? Cramorant, so yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's good at all. Having it used it for APA, I brought it to 1 out of 13 games, and it was basically a meme game at that point.
We do love Cramorant. He's a phenomenal designer.
Of course,
really bad Pokemon. He's an awful Pokemon. I remember I was playing in a league and I wasn't too well, and I was like, I'm bringing WinCon Cramorant this week. I was playing Sun, so I brought like Damprock Gothitelle with like mixed Life Orb, Agility, Cramorant, and it almost worked. It was flames. Okay, keep going.
Nice. But yeah, no, so I thought if Venusaur was dead, like, it was going to be really tough for Hood to win. But he did have the win con, which was Stockpile Marini, and that was crazy. Well, it was crazy because he let the Flygon was in on a Marini, and running the Calc. The Flygon went for Earthquake, didn't kill, and Marini went for a Recover. Flygon had a 50% chance to kill the Marini outright with Earthquake on that play. He just got, Callum just got a pretty low roll. So, like, if he just got, like, the 50% roll to kill, like, it would have been 1,000% game over there. Mo would have no chance to win that game. And, like, he's like, maybe and Mo was saying, maybe it's Scarfed. And then he said after the damage, I'm not sure if it's 100% banded. What do you mean you're not 100% sure if it's banded? Run the calc. And, like, he said later in the battle that he doesn't run calcs, but, like...
You should.
Well, you should. You can't say you're not 100% sure when you could be, and then say you're not going to run calc. Like, that thought process doesn't make any sense. That was so frustrating. And then he said... Well, then he had the Weather Ball Seismitoad, which was a really cool bring. Like, it's a fire move to hit the Vikavolt. But Vikavolt was max special defensive, and he would have killed Seismitoad with an Energy Ball, but instead Cal went for Roost, and like there were there's like a lot of people that are just, in general, it's a trend that I've noticed, maybe from like the newer coaches, like if a Mon is like at 75% HP and has like a pretty free attack, they just go for Roost instead of going for like offensive momentum or initiative. Like, you don't need to be at 100% HP all the time. Sometimes you just gotta make a play and attack what's in front of you. Like, progress the game forward, not stall Maiden and keep it at the current condition. Just getting yourself an advantage there. And going for Roost doesn't necessarily give you an advantage sometimes. But that's a side note. But he could have killed the Seismitoad with an Energy Ball. And then, I forget what Callum brought in next. But Moed's like, oh, my Seismitoad is too important. I need to keep it at max HP. I was like, well, if it was that important, why would you have sacked it to the Vikavolt? So, like Moed, some of these plays just didn't make any sense whatsoever. The Volibee, well, there was a play where Callum went for Outrage for no reason. I forget what it was on, but he would have killed with a U-turn and went for Outrage instead. And then Moed brought the Volibee in, and I feel like you just continuously roost until the Flygon hits itself in confusion. But he went for a Roost once and then went for a Foul Play, which did a lot of damage to the Flygon. And then the Flygon was in confusion because it got a 3-turn Outrage. If Callum stayed in and just Outraged and didn't hit himself in confusion, running the Calc again, it was a 75% chance to kill the Volibee. If he just stayed in and Outraged and risked like getting confused. Now I kind of understand why Callum didn't make that play, because the Marini was so important that he kind of needed an Earthquake that hit the Marini, but he also had a PZ, which you'll talk about later. But yeah, but Moet just roosted. There's no reason why not just continuously roost all the time with the Volibee. I didn't even watch all the stalling part. I just skipped over it, and then Marini just basically won the game. So I gotta give him credit. He got himself in like a winning position at that point and won the game, but he should have 100% lost. There were multiple times where Moet should have lost that game and just was fortunate that Cal wasn't as aggressive as he has been in the past, which seemed weird, but yeah, it worked out. Oh, it was also like he was setting up stockpiles with the Marini, and like the PZ was in. It easily could have been Trick. It was a Trick. The Marini didn't win either. So like there are just so many weird circumstances to just happen to work out for Moet. So he got the win. I moved them up from 8 to 10, but yeah, weird game.
Very weird game. It was Venusaur's daycare service.
Yeah.
What I called it when I was watching in college on Friends. It was definitely really funny. I I think the team that Callum brought was pretty solid.
Yeah.
While the Cramorant isn't a great Pokemon, I thought it was a really creative check to Venu, which otherwise, decimated.
Definitely. Yeah, that was a cool bring.
Really good. And I think it was good awareness, too, by Moet. He said, this might be safety goggles when he was about to sleep powder it. And it was. It was definitely safety goggles. So that was a pretty cool hindsight by Moet. And obviously, he ended up trying to just attack it, but he's like, is this AV? No, it was just Spadef. Again, please run Calc. Please use the Calc. It's free. They give it to you.
Yeah.
But regardless, I like the team that Callum brought. PZ, in theory, should have killed something every single time it came in. There was not a single switch. And I ran the Calc on Duraludon. If you wanted to bring Duraludon, it guaranteed. I think it was a 75% chance to kill offensive Duraludon after rocks.
Yeah.
PZ is ridiculously strong, and I think he should have been more aggressive in getting it in on those turns and stuff like that. I believe he got in. There was a turn where he got in his Vikavolt for free on a decently weakened Volibee.
Yeah.
It was either weakened or it had just roosted. I feel like that was a perfect opportunity to get in your PZ and just throw off a big hit. Something I will say about the PZ set though, I completely agree in the sense that you have Tri Attack because you only want to click Tri Attack, and then the Sleep Talk in case you get to put Sleep by Venu, I guess, or something like that. But like you said, Trick would have been ridiculously clutch, especially when you're playing mono tiny LC Eviolite Mons. That's a really, really valuable tool for a lot of those really annoying pivots into your team and stuff like that. And I think that would have 100% won him the game. Tricks the Marini, the game's over. I think that's 100% it. I think he should have just taken advantage of his breakers a lot more. I don't think he played super awful. Other than that, Roost turn was really sus. And walking into Outrage was a bit sus as well. I wrote that down in my notes. Other than that, I just think that he should have gotten in his PZ more, man. All he had to do was pivot in on his slower stuff and just kill something every single time. And he would have been in such a good position. So definitely really, really unfortunate the way it went down. I think he played decently around the ring. I did watch the Stallfest. I watched it on 2x speed, and it took me 30 minutes to get through it. But I watched it, and it was Callum played pretty well around trying to PP stall their Marini and pivoting around correctly, forcing it to use recovers, trying to stall it out of recovers and things like that. Moet just kind of realized it, a little too soon. I need to be more careful with my turns. Because he was pivoting around. I think something he could have done a lot earlier, though, is go hard Cinderace and just continuously spam Super Fang.
Yeah.
Try and keep it as low as humanly possible. And force a lot more recovers. And then try and revenge it with PZ or Flygon after. So I think if he did that a little bit better, he could have potentially broken through, I think. And I think if the Marini went down, obviously the game was over. I don't think Moet had the pieces to win, no matter what, if the Marini didn't work out. It was another instance of Moet being a very gimmicky team and a very gimmicky strategy, and it working. And we saw the week prior, it didn't work. So I think that's definitely a downside to Moet. Is I think he could be a lot more consistent, win these games a lot more convincingly, because I think he is a good player. If he was bringing more, structurally sound teams, opposed to these, haha, I'm gonna bring Stockpile Marini and try and win with that, Which, again, I get it. It is fun to try and win with some dumb win cons. I just said, I tried to bring Damprog Goth, Talent, Agility, what do you call it, Cramorant 1 week. It's fun sometimes, but I do think that he could maybe tighten up his builds a little bit more in the sense of, not that they're bad right now, it's just the sense that they're very gimmicky. And once those gimmicks don't work, or if they don't work, he loses. And that's obviously not a good time. But
yeah, and his team is also not good. No, so that's also
when you gotta pull up with Vulpix, Volibee, Marini every week. That's he really brought mono LC. That was crazy to me. I looked at the teams and team preview. I said, how does Callum not win? How does he not just click Tri Attack 6 times and kill everything on the team? So yeah, that was definitely really interesting. That's something I could have seen him just leading with too. It's just PZ, just clicking a button, just clicking Tri Attack and killing something. But
exactly. Yeah,
with offensive teams like that, you have to find the position to bring in your wall breakers for free and take KOs, because you're gonna get, you're gonna be put in a bad position otherwise. But again, it was a very interesting game. I'll definitely, say that at the very least. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump on to game number 6, which was James Big versus Visually. Where this was a pretty solid game. I believe James won. What was the score of the game? He won 2-0. 2-0. Something I noticed on team preview was James, like a lot of weeks, he kind of lacks good offensive pressure on his teams, his initial builds. outside of that Conkeldurr, something I've noticed is he's really been leaning on like offensive Frostlass, which again I like Frostlass a lot. I think it's a great Pokemon.
Yeah.
But not as your wall breaker. You know what I mean? So like being forced, like I have to bring Specs Frostlass to break through the team. I have to bring E-Belt, which you brought this week, to break through the team. That can get tough. I will say versus this team though, not the biggest deal in the world because visually this team is so inherently offensive and pretty frail. Like there's some naturally bulky mons, but he doesn't have like a really great defensive backbone, so it was okay. But going into it, visually again brought like this screens HO type approach, which I don't know if that was the bring versus James' team. I feel like, you know, he kind of was. The team was a little bit more gimmicky. Like for example, the Scrafty tech in practice, it was like in theory it was kind of cool. In practice, it wasn't great. I mean, we saw the counter do like nothing to the conk, which was definitely really unfortunate.
Yeah.
What do you call it? I think that James should have just kind of spammed Drain Punch on it because that would have put him in range of Mach. I do think that he positioned himself very good for the end game, though. The Umbreon set was really interesting, and I liked it a lot. There was obviously big roadblocks to it, which I kind of noticed initially when I was watching Business Side first. I was like, that's an interesting bring when you're playing, you know, Prim and, Scrafty. But he realized that in his team builder. I watched his team builder, and he's like, I know these things, like, hardwall me, but if I can eliminate these or chip these down, I can 100% win Scrafty. And I thought it was a really cool bring. I think it was Crunch Sucker Curse Moonlight, which ended up winning the game, putting himself in a better position. I just think that visually needed to position his offense a little bit better. It's kind of the same thing I said with Callum in the sense that he didn't get in his Zam very well. He didn't position his Rachi very well, which also did really well in that matchup.
Yeah.
And could have, James was even saying, like, Rachi's terrifying versus me. I think if he positions it a little bit better, especially with such an offensive team, you have to make sure you do that, and he unfortunately didn't. Screens HO, like I said, bit interesting. I feel like he needed, you know, a little bit more of a, you know, a breaking presence or something like that versus this build, especially with no Corviknight. Like a Diggersby could have went crazy in that matchup. Like something like that, you know, could have really helped. Yeah. It required really good positioning to potentially win with the build that he brought, and I just don't think he had sufficient turns and didn't position himself well enough. The Prim also did really well. I think he punched a big hole early on with that. It just the end game wasn't very sound. But yeah, what did you think?
Yeah, I don't know about Diggersby having that great of a matchup. At Corvs, like, you gotta assume that Corv comes anyway. So
yeah,
that's tough. Unless they're like maybe a Swords Dance set, maybe to break the team. That might have done work, but
I was saying like outside of Rotom.
Yeah.
With an agility up, I think if you chip Rotom, it could have went crazy. But I guess you also do have the Conk though in the back.
Yeah, that always revenges. Yeah, and then he had Sasha Moongus. So.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, no, I think Viz played pretty well this game. Scrafty took out the Conkeldurr one-on-one, so that's definitely cool to see. He chipped the team down pretty well with screens, Rotom into the Calm Mind Primarina. That did pretty well. It was unfortunate Rindo Berry didn't come into play on the Primarina. If it was like a leftovers or a different item, it probably would have done a lot more damage. I don't remember what the Rindo Berry was for specifically.
Maybe a Mungus, but it can hit you with Sludge Bomb or Clear Schmont. So.
Yeah, it must have been something different. I don't remember. He has a reason for it, which I'm sure was fine. But yeah, no, he also got like crit with the Clear Smog at one point, which didn't really make much of a difference, but it's kind of unfortunate. There was a play where James went for a Shadow Ball on the Dragalge and got a Spadef drop, so that way an Ice Beam killed afterwards, where I don't think Ice Beam would have killed after Shadow Ball initially. And then like the main misplay that Viz had this game was missing Charge Beam. And then he got broken down to a Sash. What broke his Sash? It wasn't a Reboot. I forget what mon. I think it was the Frostlass. Yeah, he missed a Charge Beam on the Frostlass. And like that just wasn't necessary to go for the Charge Beam if there's a 10% chance to miss. Like, because you needed your Sash. Because at the end of the game, Reboot was pretty strong. And Viz knew that it was Choice Scarfed. So, like, having a Sash on the Zam was pretty important. So having a chance to miss a move just wasn't the smart play. So what do I have Viz this week? I'm sure I didn't drop him much at all. I kept him
at 4.
Yeah, I kept him at 4. I don't think there's really one that. I don't think Viz played that bad. I don't think there was anyone that really could have overtaken him. but you dropped the one spot 2-4. Yeah, that's fair. And then we both have James pretty high up at 5 and 6.
He's impressed me lately.
Yeah, no, he's definitely had some good builds, but I have my 5 to 7, Uzi, James, and Calm. Like, they're all in their own tier. That's like, I could have ranked any of them in any rank. But James, I don't know. I don't think he's played the toughest competition yet, but Viz is definitely a very good opponent. But he also did lose to Zatsa week 1, so it all balances out. And honestly, I feel like James kind of got lucky the last 2 weeks, which is why I don't have him higher, but I still have him pretty high up. Because James
he's definitely improved a lot. I think.
He has improved a lot, but he probably should be 1-3 and not 3-1. But if you get the wins, that's all that matters in the end. So yeah, not much more to say about Viz's game.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then we just got one more, which is going to be, dang, this is a record time. We only got one more, with is Uzi versus Envy for our final game of the season. Or season. Week. It's not the final game of the season. No. Final episode. Just sprung it on you guys. Sorry, guys. No, but yeah, final game of week number 4.
I was going to let you correct that.
Yeah.
But
oh, good lord. I caught it. Do you want to talk about Envy's win while I try and regroup after that?
Yeah, no, this was maybe the best game of the season. It was a really nice watch, and it was like a 40-minute battle or so, and they still had like multiple minutes of time left on each of their timers. So it like just shows, like, if you have a game plan like going into the game, like, it's not that hard to click moves and still have like a pretty decent length game with definitely over like 30 or 40 turns on the 10-minute timers, which stinks, but it's definitely doable. So this is like a good example of, like, you can still get a good game and pretty lengthy game and making good plays under this current circumstances that we have with the timer. Yeah, Envy had, again, he's been like, as we said, Pokegame's number 2. We both have Envy at number 1. Pokegame's been like pretty hyper offensive most weeks with like pivots like as Gigalith or Slowbro. Envy's been going pretty bulky with having like Dragapult is just a safe checker. Like, if something goes wrong, Dragapult's just so fast it can like revenge kill anything that it needs to, and just relies on a lot of bulk, which I don't think I would have expected when he drafted like Mamoswine and Obstagoon early on in the season. I thought it would have been a lot more offensive, but he hasn't brought those mons as much as I thought they would have came. It's been going a lot of a bulkier route, and it's worked out for Envy well, and that's why we have him at number 1. I don't think he's going to fall off for a while from that rank. He played this gun tank, which I usually crap on pretty hard, but he brought Subtoxic, Protect, Skuntank, and that just did a lot of work early on in the game. And MV at the start of the game also basically predicted everything that Uzi brought, so that was definitely cool to see. He even predicted like the physical Hydreigon to come this game, which made sense, like a Head Smash or Stone Edge set to hit the Togekiss harder than like Flash Cannon or something on a special set. But yeah, he did a lot of work with this Skuntank early on and put Uzi on the back foot. Yeah, and then he was able to get in the Dragapult, which was basically the whole point of Skuntank, was get a lot of status ups, that way you could spam Hex at the late game with Dragapult. And even when he missed the Will-O-Wisp bird on the Passimian, which was pretty big, I don't know how much of a difference it would have been. It just meant that Passimian probably would have been forced to go for knockoff a lot over U-turn, and probably would have lost Passimian earlier. But yeah, Envy could still play pretty safe with the Dragapult, with all the status that he got early on, and basically put himself in a good position to win. He didn't really make any flashy plays necessarily until the very end, where he double Gyroballed on the Tangrowth and then predicted a switch into a Hydreigon, Gyroballed again and killed the Hydreigon, which was kind of risky. If the Tangrowth stayed in and knocked off the Bronzong's Colbur Berry, then I feel like Uzi was in a position to maybe win that game, but Uzi definitely wasn't going to win the game if his Hydreigon went down. So good plays by Envy. Probably the best battle like game plan of the week yet again. Like, I've just been super impressed with Envy this whole season.
Yeah, no, like you said, I don't think Uzi played very I don't think Uzi played bad at all. This was a very, very good game. Envy, like you said, I'll touch on him really quick because you already did most of it on him. But he just has great defensive synergy on his team, and he's able to build really bulky fat builds and kind of just rely on that endgame win con of Dragapult, play really safe, and just kind of take home games like that. I thought the status spam plus Dragapult was like the best approach you could have taken to this matchup. I thought that was very, very smart. Initially, I think he had like status on like 90% of his mods, which was really smart though with the Dragapult. Again, that was a great bring by him, just because you know, Toxic plus the Hex and you know the Sub Willow as well. Which that Willow Miss, the fact that it's able to play so easily around, you know, getting that big Willow Miss on the Simeon definitely shows that you definitely a really solid build to kind of account for, you know, really anything that went wrong in that matchup and things like that. I don't think Uzi played very bad. I thought Uzi's game plan was very good as well. Again, I really like the physical Hydra bring. I thought that was very, very smart. Scolipede was a great potential endgame win con. I think if he just got that sufficient chip on Bronzong, he 100% could have still won that game. It was just hard to, you know, facilitate that and get that. He played very aggressively too. Once he realized he was so far on the back foot because of how much of a timer he was on, he started playing incredibly aggressively. And I think that's something that nobody's really done versus Envy this season, is play aggressive and try and make those hard doubles and put pressure on a really good defensive core. And Uzi definitely did that. He played really, really aggressively.
Well, Nexus played aggressive.
What do you call it?
And then lost his Rillaboom turn 1.
Yeah, well, there's good aggressive and there's bad aggressive. There's a difference.
Yeah.
But what do you call it? Like a great play I kind of wanted to highlight by Uzi, just like really catching Envy on being a little greedy there, was that play was when he caught the Togekiss switch, calling that the Dragapult was just coming in to get lefties back and get that little bit more residual damage, and he made I forget if he made a double or if he, you know, attack. I just had in my notes that he made a really good call, you know, trying to, you know, catch him being a little bit greedy, getting that more lefties recovery with his Dragapult, putting himself in a pretty good position and stuff like that. Again, I think if all he needed to do was get chip on that Bronzong, and again, that was really hard for him to do because Envy wasn't ever forced to go into Bronzong. With the mons that he had and things like So Envy obviously knew I need to keep Bronzong healthy or I can 100% lose this game to Scolipede. That put him in a pretty good spot there. The double Gyro play was very interesting, as you said, because I think calling a double, especially if you saw the Hydreigon was physically offensive. Another thing he could have done, just as a nice middle ground play, was potentially just Iron Defensing, because he was Iron Defense Body Press. So I feel like that covered both plays, because he saw that it was physical Dragapult, so you Iron Defense up, you true that crunch anyways, and if he knocks off your Culver Berry, but you wall Tangrowth in this gen. Like, Tangrowth can't do anything to you, and I think from the damage we saw earlier, it was obviously Assault Vest, so there wasn't really much you could do to it other than pepper it for 3% with knockoff, and obviously it's poison, so eventually you just Psychic it and knock it out, and Bronzong could have just won its own there, but you know, he did end up catching it with a thing which, you know, made it to where his victory was just 150% sealed, didn't have to risk any crits or anything like that, which obviously really clutch in. Yeah, I think early game, maybe Uzi could have played a little bit better on the Skuntank, getting a little greedy with the Copper saving it and not just ensuring that he couldn't get up a sub with his Skuntank, made it really difficult to play around for that first early part of the game, and kind of resulted in his entire team getting toxic and whittled and stuff like that for the Dragapult. But he played pretty well, and I don't think we can harp on him too much. I don't think I really dropped him much, if at all. I totally forget what I had him last week, but this week I have him at 7. So he played really well, and again, I really liked.
Yeah, it was 7 last week as well.
Yeah, so I don't think I dropped him. I think he did pretty well though. It was definitely a really, really good game overall.
Yeah, I actually bumped him up to 5th from 8th. I think he played one of the best games this week, even though he lost. So I think
for sure.
Even though Uzi's 1 and 3, like he's also played. I think he's played the trio of MV, Joey.
Pokeam.
Yeah.
And then he had to play.
He played Seabad, which I thought was gonna be like a lot better than what he was. Then he played the top 3 seeds. So we have Auto, Joey, and MV. So
definitely a good run by him. But yeah, that's gonna be the game. Dang it, we did not go that much quicker than last time. And we talked about one less game. We'll speed run it next week. But yeah, that's gonna be our rankings. Let us know what you guys think. If you disagree, you think no, I think that Fruitberry's played the best and he should be #1, even though he didn't play. That's why I said him. But just let me know what you guys think if you disagree or anything like that. I'm totally down to have the discussion. Definitely go check out Shuckle down in the description below. Like I said, next week will be up on his channel, so definitely go give a look there if you want to see the week 5 PRs as they go up next week. And let me know if there's any improvements that you think we can make to these rankings. Next week, we will have updated rosters. I totally did forget to do the transactions and our graphics and stuff like that, and I want to make sure we got this up in time and stuff like that. I know we definitely wouldn't have, because I don't know how to change it, so I got to wait for our graphics guy to help us out with that. But those will be updated next week. Like, I know a couple coaches made some pretty big transactions, so
yep.
We'll have it all, reflected in future graphics. Did you want to say anything before we left, though?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It's definitely some interesting games this week, but it's all very, very entertaining, so definitely it's been fun doing this so far.
Yeah, this is the World Battle Entertainment, so at least we're being entertained. Thank you guys so much for watching. Drop a sub if you're new here. It helps me out. It's free. It lets me know you're enjoying what I'm doing. Drop a like if you haven't done so already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.
Yep, later.